Good morning, ladies and germs. Today, the tea is hot. This tea is sizzling. The tea kind of looks like I'm drinking blood, but boy, is she just delicious. The tea is that Flat Earth Society has finally gotten to me. Not in the sense that I believe the earth is flat. I'm fed up. So hello, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to my channel if you haven't been here before. Nice to meet you, nice to have you, we have fun. So today I'm going to be talking about a topic about flat earth. And this video is partially dedicated to a certain someone out there. You know who you are. It's an interesting conspiracy, honestly, even though it's super just out there. It's interesting. In no way do I believe the earth is flat. I'm 100% sure it's round. It's just, this is interesting, it's crazy, it kind of frustrates me, it really frustrates me, and I want to share this conspiracy with you. Sit down, get comfortable, grab yourself a mug. We're here, we're ready to discuss. Let's get started. So, flat earth is way more popular than you might think. A few celebrities that think the earth is flat are Shaquille O'Neal, Kyrie Irving, B.O.B. Flat Earth Society has a really well-developed page with a logo, a store, a wiki page. So I went onto their website and I went to a frequently asked questions page where they had all of these questions that maybe a round earth believer might ask, and then their evidence to just disprove all of that. So I'm going to be going through and talking about just general things about Flat Earth Society and geography, circumnavigation, the ice wall that holds in the water supposedly around flat earth, and just all of that good stuff. So the first thing that comes to my mind when I think about the earth being round and the earth being flat is photo evidence that the earth is round, such as photos from space. And when I look at pictures from the International Space Station and I see a round earth, the round swell of the earth, I'm like, I don't doubt that. Well, flat earth believers say that these photos are manipulated. They're just altered, it's so easy, it's green screen, it's CGI, whatever. Sometimes they'll make the argument that it's a fisheye lens that makes the earth look distorted and round in pictures. Well, okay, if it's round in those pictures through a fisheye lens, then how come the astronaut, the satellite, the pieces of the space station that are in front of it are not distorted? They're perfectly proportional. There's no scientific evidence that backs up flat earth. It's all just pseudoscience, empirical observations, so to speak, that flat earthers make themselves. Now there have been decades and centuries of flat earth experiments, one of them being the Bedford Level experiment. And during this experiment, a scientist named Samuel Rowbotham stood at one end of a very flat, almost completely level lake, so he perceived. And this was the Bedford River. So he stood at one end with his telescope and then looked down a stretch of 6 miles. And at the other end of the 6 miles was a boat that was rowing away from him, and he was watching this boat through the telescope. And of course, over a span of 6 miles, it looked flat. It looked like the boat was not losing any of its bottom. It was not going over some kind of swell over the edge of a hill. And so that was the argument that was made from the Bedford Level experiment, and it has been repeated many times, one of them being in the Chesapeake Bay. That was the Bishop experiment, which just included a bunch of sloppy math with the Pythagorean theorem. Samuel Rowbotham made the argument that if you were to travel 6 feet across round Earth, that there would be a noticeable swell between your starting point and the ending point, aka you would stand at one point and look at the other end and you would see a swell because the earth was round. Well, how on earth? Well, hold on while I look up the exact measurement of the circumference of the world. The circumference of Earth is 24,901 miles. So how in the world could you stand at one end of a 6 mile stretch, and see a noticeable swell? You can't. It's impossible. A 6 mile stretch on round Earth is virtually flat. The distance and elevation is almost microscopic. And then there's also the empirical evidence that they say, oh, well, you stand on Earth and you look across the field, it's flat. You look up at the clouds, they're flat. Everything is flat from your observation. Well, that's because you're a little person compared to this whole expanse of a world. So how can you see a difference in the curvature of the Earth from your standpoint? That's another thing. That's another flaw in the points that they like to make. Sorry, I'm getting really heated. The elevation that you need to be at to notice the curvature of the Earth is 40,000 feet. So how can a person, maybe 5.5 to 6 feet average, notice any curvature of the globe as a whole. It's impossible. It's literally impossible. Photo evidence that they say exists for flat Earth is when you look out the window of a plane and it's flat. You don't see any curvature. The first thing that's wrong with that is that planes, commercial airliners, fly at a height of about 36,000 feet, which is about 4,000 feet below the height that you need to be to perceive any curvature of the Earth. So how can they say that, oh, if you're up in a plane and you look out the window, the Earth looks flat, but oh wait, you have to be at a height of 40,000 feet to see any curves? Like, it just contradicts itself. If people have been to space, if astronauts have circumnavigated the globe in space, been on the space station, just been up into space in general, how have they not realized that the Earth is flat? Well, to put it quite simply, it's a hoax. Space travel, space exploration has never happened, according to people that believe the Earth is flat. And it's not just that space organizations like NASA and all the other ones around the world are trying to cover up the fact that the Earth is flat. They just don't know. They expect the Earth to be round based on
scientific facts.
Flat Earthers believe that the faking of space travel began with the space race that took place during the Cold War against Russia, because both countries equally wanted to get their men into space. And I think anybody who knows anything about astronauts studying and working in the International Space Station or spending a prolonged amount of time in space knows about muscular dystrophy and skeletal dystrophy. Because when you're in space in that zero gravity environment for a long period of time, your muscles and your skeleton start to kind of deteriorate. Now, muscular dystrophy can happen on Earth, and it does. If you stay just in your bed for months on end, of course your muscles are going to deteriorate and you're going to lose mass. Because space is a zero gravity environment, the dystrophy occurs much more quickly. So for a period of 6 months on Earth and a period of 6 months on space, the dystrophy that occurs in space is going to be much more severe than the dystrophy that would occur in a person on Earth. So yes, they could say that, oh, they get the muscular dystrophy because they just lock them up for months on end and they stay in a place in NASA and then they come out like they've returned from space and their muscles are all just weak. The level of weakness that the muscles are when the astronauts return is way more severe than what could happen if they were remaining on Earth. Let's talk about the geography of flat Earth. So flat Earth is a disc, as you may imagine, and the continents are in the middle, and then all the way around the outside is Antarctica, forming a complete border around flat Earth. So the sun moves around the North Pole, which is at the center of the disc of flat Earth, and the sun's distance from the North Pole affects the seasons. For example, if the sun is the furthest from the North Pole that it can be, it's going to be winter in the Northern Hemisphere, and if it's the closest it can be to the North Pole, it's going to be summer in the Northern Hemisphere. Now the moon orbits exactly across from the sun, and so whichever half of the flat Earth the sun is over, the moon is over the other half. And it basically looks like the moon is casting a shadow over the Earth, which makes it nighttime, and the sun is casting light over its part of the Earth, which makes it daytime. But we all know that the moon does not give off darkness. It's the absence of the sun that makes it nighttime. So there's no way for the sun to be above flat Earth and it be nighttime. And the stars rotate around flat Earth in the same way that the sun and the moon do. They're just a giant hub above the Earth and they just spin. And the tides are not caused by the moon. They're caused by the magnetic rings that are underneath flat Earth. For those that say that, oh, your GPS, if you travel in due west, you will come back around to the exact same spot because the Earth is round. Well, on flat Earth, if you travel west, you'll just go in that same circle around the North Pole. Exactly how it works on round Earth. Like, north would be the far north end of flat Earth, the flat Earth disk, not the center of flat Earth. Like, what the heck? Probably the most perplexing thing about this theory to me is the fact that there is an edge of the Earth if the Earth is flat. And if there is an edge of the Earth, how come we don't know about it? How come it's not photographed? What's on the other side of flat Earth? Supposedly, there is an ice wall that is 150 feet high and forms a border around the whole flat Earth. And it keeps the water in. It's like,
okay, water, like, you're gonna stay here, you're not gonna spill over the edge.
And it covers 95% of the border of Antarctica. If you do a search for ice shelf, which is the proper term for what is in the photographs, you get the same exact pictures as what shows up for pictures of an ice wall. An ice shelf is what the flat earthers are actually saying is the ice wall. An ice shelf is where a continental glacier, such as the ones on Antarctica, expands into the ocean. And then once it goes over the water, pieces of it break off, forming a very vertical, steep edge, and icebergs will break off and float off into the ocean. That is the ice shelf that they are saying is the ice wall. Now, the fact that they're saying that 95% of Antarctica's border is made up of an ice wall is very incorrect, because if you look up maps of Antarctica, they cover probably about maybe like 30% of the coastline of Antarctica. Let's say you get past this ice wall. You get through the 5% of Antarctica's border that is not made up of the ice wall, and you just make it through, according to flat earthers. They're like, no one has ever done it because no one has ever made it to the edge alive. Because as you get closer and closer to the edge, the conditions become more and more extreme. I find that kind of hard to believe. I think that flat earthers believe that people have climbed to the top of Mount Everest. In fact, they use that as information and evidence to say that the earth is flat. So I would say the conditions on top of Mount Everest, with its ridiculously high elevation and its extreme temperatures, I would say that that is way more extreme than the conditions that you would see in Antarctica. Yes, the temperatures are ridiculously cold, but at least you can breathe air without assistance. And if people can make it to the top of Mount Everest, they can sure as hell make it to the edge of flat earth. And when you ask someone of the Flat Earth Society, hey, what's on the other side of flat earth, there's no real answer that they can give you. I looked all over their website and there's nothing that tells me what's on the other side of flat earth. This is just some extra stuff that I found that I thought was quite ridiculous. Basic perspective. So this is on the Flat Earth Society website. Another easy experiment you can do for yourself to demonstrate this effect of basic perspective is find a computer game which can render large 3D maps. Move your character to one end of the map, center your crosshair on the line of the horizon, and turn on no clip. Without moving the mouse, ascend in height and notice how the line of the horizon will center on the crosshair until you run out of land to see. So they're telling you to open a video game and like travel up as far into the sky as you can on this video game and look and see if the earth is in fact round. I read that and I was in disbelief. And they're always clowning photos of round earth, saying it's CGI, it's easy to fake, but they're telling you to like base the evidence that the earth is flat on a video game? Like, okay, flat earth believers think that the earth is part of a geocentric solar system. So from a spiritual, biblical standpoint, flat earth makes sense, but from a scientific, factual, mathematical standpoint, round earth wins. Now in the 1500s there was a scientist named Copernicus, and he was the person that developed the heliocentric theory. And during this time the church was basically in power, and if any person tried to speak up in the name of science against the church, or just information that kind of went against the church would punish them, persecute them, throw them in jail, ban their books. This happened to Galileo, and this did happen to Copernicus after his death. So Copernicus was not punished for his views while he was alive, because shortly after his death, his book was published, and it was called On the Revolution of Heavenly Bodies. And this talked about the heliocentric theory, about how the sun was the center of the universe, and all the other planets, including Earth, revolved around the sun. Copernicus's ideas were opposed by Martin Luther, who was the head of the Roman Catholic Church. And if you took any history class, world history class, you know that Martin Luther was basically crazy. And I just find it interesting how Galileo, Copernicus, who later in modern day society have had their beliefs and their theories just accepted as common knowledge, proved as just the way that things are, were at that time persecuted and silenced by the church, because the Bible said that the earth is the center of the universe, because the church was like, no, that's not what we want to see. That's not right. Shut up. A good number of people that are members of the Flat Earth Society are religious. They base a lot of their evidence on scripture and their own beliefs. Like, why would they take all of this scientific, mathematical information and just facts and be like, no, it's a conspiracy. The earth is flat. So yeah, I guess just do with this information what you will. I just wanted to share this information because it's something that I just have been doing a lot of research on and just having a lot of discussion about. So if you like this, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel down below. Check me out on social media. Or don't, unless net neutrality gets repealed today and I will vanish from the internet forever, because I'm not trying to pay $20 a month for everything. But that's some tea for another time. So I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching and have a good day. Peace out.